If you watched our in-depth review of maple and cinnamon from Native, you'll know that we actually received a defective maple and a broken part on cinnamon. And in that video, we made an important declaration that went something like this. It sucks when this happens, but we have to give Native the opportunity to make this right before we judge them. And I firmly stand by that. These are mass-produced products with a certain margin of error, and it's literally the price we pay for the price we pay. If every single product on the line was inspected, the costs will go up to what could be completely unreasonable, and it's still subject to human error. We also told you all that we would get back to you in some form of update, whether that's a YouTube community update, a Reddit write-up, or possibly even a video. And as more and more of you expressed interest in that update, the more excited I got at the idea of producing a video. At the time of filming this, there isn't a single video on YouTube, at least the English-speaking side, that covers this topic, much less goes through the actual process, which means this is exactly the type of content that I enjoy creating and want to give back to the community. And I think I can do so in at least an entertaining or engaging enough way to make this fun to watch. And I'll be satisfied knowing that this should help many beginners out there or even experienced collectors that have yet to go through this process. As an example, I've been collecting for almost 12 years and I've done maybe 2 RMAs through AmiAmi. Though about 70% of my collection is pre-owned, so in a sense they're vetted before I buy them, right? Because they would have to denote whatever defects they had. And in some respects too, I've gotten used to some of the flaws here and there because they were stopped being produced well before I bought them. So as you can see, experiences in the RMA process will vary from beginners to even experienced collectors. Therefore, we're going to cover a myriad of things when it comes to RMAs. And if you don't know, RMA stands for Return Merchandise Authorization, which is the technical term for asking a company to return or replace an item, and I'll talk about that later. We're going to cover what you should RMA for, things that you can ask to RMA for but will probably be disappointed, and then things that will almost always be denied through an RMA request. We're then going to go through Native's entire process to RMA, follow the timeline along the way, and then when we get to the end of that, we can judge them and discuss whether or not we're happy with the results. And if this video does well, I'd like to do this for any company that we might have to RMA through. That way we can report back to you all and hold all these companies accountable. If you're watching this video, know that this is a complete self-contained video, and what I mean by that is we're going to try to film this in as close to real time as we reasonably can. In this part of the video, we are going to go through the process of submitting the RMA. Then we'll have time skips as we get to each important update along the way till we reach the end. I'm choosing to film it this way because this is exactly how you all will experience this process. And if you're waiting for an update for this, it's literally taken this long because it's literally taken this long, and we'll give you a timeline of everything. This also helps to ensure for you all that I'm standing by what I say. If I tell you that I'm going to be irritated if X thing happens, and then X thing happens, I can't rework this video to somehow make Native look better than they are. It's just a basic matter of integrity. We're the only ones doing these detailed reviews and these deep dives to the scale that we are, so it's very important to us that we're honest and that you all feel that we're being honest. It's part of the reason we have a detailed rating scale in the first place because it helps keep us very objective. It's basically a checks and balance system, so you can compare one figure on our channel to another. And likewise, it's the same with this video here. If I'm irritated about something, I need to be reporting to you all that I am irritated about something. But I gotta stop this conversation here, otherwise I'll get on my soapbox about integrity here on YouTube, so I'll go ahead and table this. If you're new to this channel, I'm Senpai, and together with my Kohai, we specialize in in-depth reviews and discussions on anime figures. If you like this video and that kind of content, check out our homepage where everything is neatly organized and consider subscribing. As per usual, this is going to be a long form video, and I don't even know how long it's going to be since the ending is some way into the future. So I will have chapters below so you can skip around to relevant parts or catch back up at a later time. And at the beginning of each section, I will give you context about it so you can decide if that's relevant to you or not. So with that, let's dive right in. I always want to make sure that everyone is on the same page, so I'm going to give you the backstory that led to this RMA. If you've seen our in-depth review on these, you already know, so feel free to skip to the next chapter. As stated prior, we do in-depth anime figure reviews, so we want to be the first to produce a review of Maple and Cinnamon from Nekopara by Native. Part of that process is to unbox these on camera, so we started here with Maple first, and that's when we realized we hit a roadblock. If you look over here, there is a hole in this arm. It's very hollow. There's supposed to be a cuff, and in that cuff is a small hole that you would slide the metal peg of the arm into. That peg allows the arm to rotate, that way you can position it better to help line them up, and it's flat out not there. And it didn't fall out in the box or anything like that. We do not have it. I imagine that during the manufacturing process that's supposed to be glued in place or pressure fit in place. So this is a complete manufacturing defect, and we could no longer continue with the review. But lucky for us, we were able to resume filming the next day because Kohai and I each bought a pair, and for whatever reason they arrived at different times. So this is actually Kohai's Maple and my Cinnamon, and the following day we were set to receive my Maple and her Cinnamon. Thus why we're able to resume filming the next day and get this review out on time. Now I'll pause here to state that we would have been extremely devastated if we couldn't do this review. Nekopara does mean a lot to us, and we really were trying hard to be the first to produce a review, and at least at the time of filming this part of the video, we're still the only ones on YouTube, at least the English-speaking side, that has a review of these. We would have still continued with the review, but it would have taken however long it took to get the replacement parts here from Native. So the next day we continue filming and we unbox my Maple and don't encounter any issues. We then proceed to go to my Cinnamon, where once again we encounter a problem, and the problem was a broken piece, which was this necklace right here. The metal chain had popped out of the heart, and this was an issue with the packaging. In the plastic blister there is a recessed area for the necklace to fit into, and a plastic clamshell piece to go over top to keep it from coming loose. Well, it came loose, and I presume from the vibrations the necklace slowly worked its way out of that hole and eventually applied enough force to pop out of the heart. The heart is made of plastic and the pin made of metal. It doesn't take that much force to do so. Now I was able to fix this, but it wasn't super trivial. I could only fix it because I had on hand a fine pair of needle nose pliers. So I was able to grip the eye hole with a drop of super glue, force it in place on the heart, let it cure, and it seems to be working just fine. I could not do so with my fingers because the eye hole was too small and it wanted to kind of move on me, so I couldn't apply enough force straight in to get it to stay. Now this fix worked. You can literally see it right here, although I haven't tried to apply force to it to see how much it takes to undo it. But I'm satisfied with this fix, and under normal circumstances, I wouldn't bother RMAing it. It's literally going to take more time and effort to RMA it than the labor involved in just repairing it. But this creates a very interesting dichotomy between these two RMAs, and so I'm going to RMA it for the sake of science. Maple here is, without a doubt, a manufacturing defect. There is nothing we could have done to make that part arrive missing. Cinnamon, on the other hand, could be misconstrued as customer-induced damage, right? We could have maybe broken that off in assembly, and I wonder if Native is going to give us pushback on that or not, but let's table this discussion for when I talk about my expectations for this RMA at a later part in this video. As irritating as getting two defective figures is, we were extremely lucky that we had two of each. And if you're wondering why Kohai and I each have a pair for our collections, it's because, and I don't think y'all really know this yet, Kohai and I aren't married. We're just boyfriend and girlfriend, and on the slim chance that our relationship goes south, we wanted to ensure that we each had a pair for our collections. This is a moment where living vicariously through each other wasn't enough. I live vicariously through her Azure Lane collection and some of the modern Miku figures. She lives vicariously through the Japanese dolls, some of the natives, and some of the bunnies that I have. Now, we've been together for almost 7 years, so there's no rush on the situation, but I know I would be crazy to let her slip away, so I am working to fix that here in the near future. I'm just waiting till I can afford the quality of what she deserves. And if you're wondering why I'm talking about this right now, don't worry, she won't know, because I found out that she doesn't watch my videos. Not even my Yoshitoku one. So her punishment is that you all will know my intentions well before she does. But she does read comments, as we do get those via notifications, so keep that a secret. Before we discuss our specific RMA situation here, let's talk in general about RMAs. What is an RMA? When should you RMA? And what can be RMA'd? If you're comfortable with RMAs and just want to see our submission with Native, feel free to skip to the chapter where we submit. Though if you're an experienced collector, I would appreciate if you stuck around, watch this section so you can comment about anything that I might have missed. And if you have your own experience with RMAs, if you can comment below and share that with the community, I think the community would really appreciate it, and I personally appreciate it. So basics first, let's start with the definition, and I like Wikipedia's definition the best because it includes synonyms for what they might call an RMA in your country, and I will have to read it. A Return Merchandise Authorization, or RMA, Return Authorization, RA, or Return Goods Authorization, RGA, is a part of the process of returning a product to receive a refund, replacement, or repair to which the buyer and seller agree during the product's warranty period. It's called an authorization because it's not your simple take a receipt to the counter and they just accept it. You're literally asking permission from the company to return, replace, or repair that product. If the company approves, then they've literally given you the right to proceed through that process. To tie that in with what we're doing in this video, we are literally going to ask Native to return, repair, or replace the defective parts in these figures here. If they accept that RMA, then they're going to tell us what the next steps are to get this resolved. And before we move on, I do want to mention something else. An RMA doesn't inherently mean it has to result in a return, repair, or replacement of that item. Sometimes, like a partial refund could be an acceptable course of action. Let's say that you bought a used figure and it arrives in a worse condition than they told you it was, but you still want the figure. It's possible that the company might arrange for a partial refund to more reflect, the condition that it arrived in, and that's perfectly acceptable so long as both parties agree to it, right? The company agrees to pay you that amount and refund it, and you, even more importantly, agree that that's a fair price. So as long as both parties agree, that is also an acceptable course of action. Now that we know what an RMA is, when should you RMA? And if by when we mean the time frame, you need to do so within the manufacturer or reseller's return window. It is different for every manufacturer or reseller, so don't assume anything, which is actually already something we've up on, which I'll talk about at a later point in this video. TLDR, Native and AmiAmi's return window is within 7 days of receiving the product. You need to alert to them the problem within that time frame. So do so as soon as you can. You don't want to give them any leverage in that conversation, right? You don't want them to ask, well, why didn't you alert us when you first got it? Now, if they go that route, we do need to judge their customer service because if you're within the return window, then you're within the return window. It's when you fall outside of that window that conversation gets a little more difficult, and we just have to hope that they're fair about it. Now, if by when should you RMA, I mean the circumstances in which you should RMA, I've done my best to come up with a list of reasons, and it's not all inclusive, but I think I've got all the main ones. And to elaborate further on this, we do have to distinguish between new figures and pre-owned figures. We're going to talk about reasons that will and should be accepted as an RMA, things that you can try to RMA for but will probably be rejected, and then things that almost always will not be acceptable for an RMA. So I'll start with listing reasons, and I will have to read them. So reasons you should RMA for new figures: 1, a manufacturing defect, missing pieces, broken pieces when the box shows no sign of damage and it's not customer induced, or lastly, inaccurate website description outside of the prototype photos. By defects, I specifically mean like Maple here, where she's incomplete. You can't finish assembling her. Maybe there's a problem with fitment, such as the peg being misshapen or even the hole being misshapen. Missing pieces is pretty self-explanatory, right? You paid for the entire figure, make sure you get the entire figure. Broken pieces gets tricky, because if there's any damage to the outside of the box, they're probably going to say it's a problem with the shipping company and you should seek reimbursement from them. It's really annoying when that happens, and AmiAmi has been known to do that. If the outer box is pristine and then it's broken on the inside, then that tells them there might have been something wrong with the packaging or was broken when it was inserted into the box, and they'll accept that RMA. For inaccurate website description, I mean something like a bonus item. So maybe for Native figures, it's supposed to come with a postcard, and it states that it should. If you don't get that, reach out to them. It could also be a feature that maybe the final version doesn't have that it said it would. In this case, this could be an argument for a partial reimbursement, right? Because maybe you still like the figure and want it, but you were sold something different. So a partial refund could be acceptable here. For the missing pieces, hopefully they'll just send you whatever it is, right? Or the postcard, maybe they'll just send that to you if that's the case. For pre-owned figures, you have slightly less options in a sense, the main one being that the quality or grade is different than as described, that there are missing pieces that weren't disclosed, there's broken pieces not disclosed, or once again, inaccurate website description. To elaborate on grade, many pre-owned figures are assigned a grade, so you more or less can expect what condition you'll be receiving it in, such as on RMA. If you get a figure that is lesser than the grade that you paid, most certainly reach out. It's a good example of a time where a partial reimbursement might be a good way to go. That way the final value of what you pay for it actually reflects the condition you received it in. And if you don't like the condition that you're in and you're not satisfied with it, you can also just return it. Missing and broken pieces that aren't disclosed is pretty self-explanatory, right? You should know anything that is missing or broken before you purchase it. Unfortunately, in this case, if something is missing or broken, there's not really a way that like RMA, for example, can help you get those parts, right? Because this figure is probably not produced anymore, and you're not the original owner of the item, right? Who should have gone through the RMA process to get those missing pieces. Or they're the ones responsible for losing said pieces and like sold it to RMA, for example. So unfortunately, a refund might be the way to go if there's something missing or broken and you're not satisfied with that. And once again, an accurate website description more so leans towards things like a postcard or additional bonus items that are said to be included or not, or maybe there's a limited edition version of this that you didn't receive, for example. Let's move on to the harder part of this discussion, which is kind of just sad truths about the hobby that we're in. There are things that you can try to RMA for, but kind of expect to be rejected and disappointed. These things are like paint defects that are highly visible, paint transfers that are highly visible. If it differs strongly from the prototype image, though this is for new figures, not pre-owned ones, or lastly for RMA requests outside of the return window. So let's elaborate here. Paint is very, very tricky, and we'll start by talking about it in the context of new figures. The issue with paint is that many issues with paint is considered normal and within manufacturing tolerances. So things like debris and dirt in the hair, little paint spots and clumps, those are considered normal. Paint going out of lines is considered normal, and even a paint run here or there could be considered normal. And RMA is very known for denying RMAs based on paint. The exception to this will be if there's an issue that affects the entire batch of figures, but at that point the manufacturer has probably acknowledged it, and RMA has probably reached out to you to begin the RMA process. Paint transfers are even more tricky because you have to somehow prove that you weren't the one that caused them, because it's so easy to do during the assembly of these figures. And even then, I've seen RMA just suggest for ways for you to clean and remove them. If you're not comfortable like taking responsibility for that or don't want to clean them, maybe then you can give a little bit of pushback to RMA and say that you want help in some other way. But the key for getting paint defects or paint transfers approved are really how visible they are from the way you display them. If they visually impair the figure from like a 2-foot distance, like maybe there's a mark on like the cheek here, or maybe it's right here in the hair that's easily visible, hopefully then they will approve it. But if it's a mark like behind their neck or someplace you're not going to see, there's almost no chance that it's going to get approved. Now paint with pre-owned, it's a similar situation, but with even more red tape and less chance of it being approved, because now we have to factor in wear and tear from the prior owner. The prior owner could have caused the paint transfers that you see or the paint chips. And then RMA, of course, assigns a grade to that and sells it to you with that grade that you accepted. Your only chance really for recourse here is if maybe it was a grade A, so it's unopened or appears to be unopened, right? And if you're lucky, maybe they have more of these in stock and can maybe help swap it out for you or exchange it. But other than that, your only recourse here for paint on pre-owned figures is going to be if you can prove that the condition that you received it in is different than what you purchased it for. That's about your only chance of getting an RMA for paint defects for a pre-owned figure. In terms of differing from the prototype image, this only applies to new figures, and once again there's lots of red tape here. Because the photos always say this is a prototype photo and the final product may differ. This is one of the most maddening things about our hobby. I can't think of any other industry where we're literally pre-ordering based on a prototype photo, but are never presented photos of the final product until it's right in our hands. If you're lucky, maybe someone uploads like a sneak peek of what the final product looked like, but at that point, you're probably locked into that pre-order, and canceling it could put your account in jeopardy. And it's not like the resellers like AmiAmi go back and post, final pictures of that product. Like, no company does that. So it's absolutely crazy. If that figure has a clear base, right, and it doesn't state that that's going to be an acrylic base, you're not getting that clear base. You're going to get some ugly white base or something equally unimaginative. Support poles are also an issue. Most prototype photos do not include them, and the final product suddenly has them. Now, if they're egregious enough, you may be able to get an RMA if enough people complain. A good example of this is Furyu's Albedo Chinese dress version, where the support poles were super visible in the final version because they literally flanked her and come from the bottom. They are absolutely atrocious, and a bunch of people complained about it. When a lot of people get behind it and there's enough anger, then they might accept returns. This is also true for paint, right? Maybe you ordered a scale figure, but the final version has like prize figure quality. If enough people complain, right, it might prompt something from the manufacturer. Maybe they state, hey, we hear you, we're sorry about this, we're either going to replace the item, we're going to put out a new one, or send you a different part, right, that's fixed. But at that point, with the manufacturing stepping in, then resellers might accept the RMA for you. So the key to either of these really getting accepted is how many people vocalize their anger and then complain about it. Maybe then they'll accept an RMA. If we're talking pre-owned figures, there's no chance of getting an RMA for this because they expect you to have seen photos of the final product. This is also irritating because it's not like they adjust their listing to not be the prototype photos, because these companies do not put out final photos of their products. So you have to like Google it or go to MFC, right, and see other customer photos of these. Again, very aggravating, but unfortunately you're not going to be able to get an RMA for it for a pre-owned figure. And lastly, RMAing outside of the return window. When you buy something from a company, you are agreeing to their terms of service, and part of that is the return window. So if you're outside of that, you, the customer, are in the wrong, no matter if you agree or not with their time frame of the return window. Now, this one has the greatest chance of being accepted because at the end of the day, they probably want to provide good customer service to you, right, and want to keep you as a customer. But submit things as you find them as soon as you can, because that gives you more leverage and more chance of getting a second chance from them. Unfortunately, this could be dictated solely by who you get responding to your RMA request, right? You could get a happy customer service agent that just wants to help you, or you could get one that's having a bad day and just wants to deny anyone for any reason. Your account and standing with the company could also help you here. If you've been a long-time customer and don't have a history of, putting in RMAs, they might see that and still want to keep you as a customer, so they're more obligated to try and assist you. If you are outside of that return window, I wouldn't self-disclose that you are outside of that return window. Wait till they actually ask you about it. And then from there, you can choose to approach that however you want. You could be honest, be like, hey, I did receive these 10 days ago, but I've been on vacation. I couldn't get to them. So I unboxed them just now, saw the defect, and I alerted that to you all. Please help me out. At that point, honestly, could be rewarded in this situation. I do think this type of RMA does have the greatest chance of success, but just realize you technically, as the customer, are in the wrong. So to summarize my section of these RMAs here, I'm not trying to discourage you from submitting them. I'm just trying to properly manage your expectations. My stance is if you have any problem at all that bothers you about your purchase, submit an RMA request. The worst thing they can say is no. And the best case scenario, maybe there is something they can do to help you out. And lastly, let's go over the reasons to RMA that 99% of the time will not be accepted. Right, 99% of the time, because it's not a hard, fast rule. That 1% of the time, they might be feeling very generous, or maybe you're like a really irate customer and they just want to assist you. But 99% of the time, you cannot RMA for box damage, you don't like or want it anymore, customer-induced damage, lost parts, or expecting a replacement or repair for a manufacturing defect, but the figure is no longer produced. For box damage, for a new figure, there's almost no recourse here. RMA literally sees the box as expendable, and its only job is to protect the figure. If the box is damaged but the figure is intact, there's no problem in RMA's eyes. If the box is damaged and the figure is damaged, like we said before, they're probably going to say it was a problem with shipping and you need to go after the shipping company. For pre-owned figures, there is a little more recourse here for you because maybe the box isn't in the condition that they described it. And maybe you can prove that the damage to the box was there prior to shipping. Example, maybe the shipping box arrived in perfect condition, but the box is more beat up and torn than they listed. Or maybe there's like UV damage that they didn't disclose. Those would be examples of ways that maybe this RMA would be approved. Then maybe you don't like it or want the figure anymore. I'm sorry, but almost on all these websites, they'll state that all sales are final. So do your best to only buy figures that you really adore and don't mind getting stuck with. Otherwise, you have to go through the process of trying to sell it on your own. If you decide you don't want it by the time you get it, maybe if you're lucky, it does arrive with some form of damage, and you could get a return through an RMA because of that reason. Amazon is probably the only exception to this rule because at that point it's just a basic return, right? It's not an RMA. You don't need authorization. You can simply return it within a 30-day period. Customer-induced damage, that's pretty self-explanatory, right? Like you broke it, they have no responsibility over that. They do not have to help you. If it does happen, go ahead and submit the RMA, right? You might get a cool customer service agent that says, yeah, okay, I'll just say it's defective and we can help you out there, but don't expect them to help you out at all. Lost parts is very similar. If you lose a piece, once again, not their problem, they don't care. If this happens to you, you can try to reach out to the manufacturer if this is still being made. The problem with this is that all those spare parts and such are going to be reserved for those with warranty claims. And so you have to approach them almost at that fine line where they're outside the warranty claim, they're not producing figures anymore, so they truly are spare to them, and maybe they'll assist you with giving you that part or maybe trying to sell it to you, something like that, but don't expect, again, an RMA for a lost part. And lastly, there's expecting a repair or replacement of a manufacturing defect for a figure that is no longer being produced. And this is pretty much very specific to pre-owned figures, specifically grade A from RMA. Imagine there's a grail that's 5 years old that you've been hunting for, and RMA has it grade A, which means it's brand new, but when you open it up, it's like Maple here, where there's a manufacturing defect preventing you from assembling it. RMA didn't know about this, right? They're not going to unbox that and look at it because they're going to sell it to you new because it's worth more money unopened. In that same vein, there's nothing they can do because they probably don't have a spare of it on hand. It's not like they have extra parts. The manufacturer themselves, they stopped producing this ages ago. They're not going to have spare parts. So unfortunately, when this happens, you're just going to have to RMA and return it, right? There is no repair. There is no replacement. It's really unfortunate when this happens. I know it's annoying, but unfortunately, you just have to take the loss and send it back to RMA for a refund. Then you're back on the hunt again, and of course, I bet by the time you see it again, it's going to be even more expensive than when you bought it in RMA. It's just the nature of the beast. And now that we know all about RMAs, we're finally getting into where we talk about my expectations for the two RMAs you see here. To clarify, we bought these direct from Native, so we'll be submitting our RMA request directly to them. If you bought through a reseller such as RMA, you would first start by submitting that request to RMA. The reason for this is that most of the time in the background of things, manufacturers and resellers have an agreement that the reseller is going to handle all the customer service and logistics for that product. This is actually extremely common because it's more rare that manufacturers actually sell direct to customers because it requires a whole nother department, right, for logistics, shipping of things, and handling customer service complaints. So always start your RMA process by submitting to where you bought it from. If for some reason RMA doesn't want to help you with the RMA, then go to the manufacturer if they even have a customer-facing side and be like, hey, RMA is not helping me out. Can you help me out? Anyways, as you know, we have two separate RMAs to submit to Native, and I think this is a great way of testing their customer service and seeing what they will or maybe will not accept for an RMA. I think it's really important that right now I air out my expectations for this process and things that I don't want to see happen. That way, as we time skip ahead through this process, we can make sure that my future feelings are in line with what I say here. So let's go ahead and elaborate. In order to lay out my expectations, I have to be completely honest with you guys. We've already fucked up. As Americans, I made the horrible assumption that we would have 30 days to submit the RMA request. We received these on July 22nd, and at the time, we knew they were defective, but I was only focused on finishing the review, editing it, publishing it, uploading it, etc. And then I took a break for a while, and then yesterday started writing the script on August 10th, which is 19 days after receiving these figures, or 12 days after the expiration window for the return. It wasn't until writing the script and looking at the terms of service did I realize that we only had the 7-day window. Now I will go through the whole process of how to submit the request and share with you all what we stated in our request, but I'll tell you now that the field for the receive date of the figure was optional. So I didn't self-disclose that, right? This is a time where being forthcoming about that might hurt you. Treat it like talking to the police, right? It's not a crime to withhold information, but it is a crime to lie. So not until Native asks me for that information, I'm not going to disclose it. The field doesn't really make sense anyways, though, because they could just look it up via the tracking information. But because of all of this, my expectations for the situation have completely changed because now we are in the wrong. So let's go ahead and review my expectations. Here are my wants for the RMA. I do want them to accept the RMA even though we're late, though this is more pertinent to Maple here. I do not want to have to return or exchange anything. I don't want any out-of-pocket costs. I'm fine with a new torso piece for Maple here, or even maybe the piece that I'm missing. And for Cinnamon, I'm fine with a new necklace if they accept the RMA. I do not want a refund contingent upon return as my only option. And I don't want a partial refund for Maple. For starters, looking at Maple here, I want them to accept the RMA. No amount of delay in unboxing her or submitting the RMA request changes the fact that she arrived with a manufacturing defect. She's literally an incomplete figure. So if they don't accept the RMA request, we're literally down a figure. To clarify, I know we're in the wrong here, right? We're outside of their terms of service that we agreed to when we bought her. And if they try to deny the request, I will give some pushback here. But if they continue to deny it, then we might just have to chalk this up to a very expensive life lesson. And although I won't be happy, I'll understand why they came to that conclusion. For our figure situation and how we collect, this will have ramifications. We ship all of our figures to a UPS box because we have so many coming in that we just can't be home to sign for them all the time. But we literally might only make a trip once or twice a month to this box. There are many times where by the time we pick up the figure, it's going to be outside of the return window. So if this gets denied, we're going to have to change how we interact with that. Every time a figure arrives, we're going to have to probably immediately go get it and at least break the seal and look through the blister package to see if there's any noticeable damage. This would be unfortunate because for our in-depth reviews, we like to break the seal on camera. So this would change how we go about doing that. For Cinnamon, her situation is different because it could be misconstrued as customer-induced damage, even though it's not. So even if we were inside of the return window, I could see why Native would be hesitant to accept the RMA. Add to the fact that we're outside of that return window, and I could see them denying this. Personally, I won't be too disappointed here because I was able to fix it to my own standard of quality. But what I will be disappointed in is the fact that I would not be able to share with you all that Native would or would not accept this if this was within the return window. So my regret here would actually be for the content for you all and not for me personally. I do not want to have to ship anything. It's an absolute pain to ship anything internationally. If they're going to make me go that route, they better at least provide a prepaid label so I'm not out of pocket anything and to make that process as easy as possible. But even with the time it's going to take for me to do that, the lead time is even further because typically they have to receive the item, process it, and then ship your return or exchange. So depending on how slow of a speed of shipping they choose, it could determine how long this process takes. They could have shipping that takes 30 days for this to get to them, and by the time they process and send it back, it's another 30 days. This adds a ton of total time to the exchange here, and I can't imagine it's even cost effective in the first place. I do not want any out-of-pocket costs, and this does tie into what I just stated. If they want me to ship these, I want them to send me a prepaid label. I do not want a situation where I have to return these back, I have to pay with my own money out of pocket, and then worse, have to get reimbursed for the amount that I paid. I do not trust nearly any company with this process. I treat them like insurance, right? I always think they're going to want to get out of paying me the full amount that I paid to do this when they're the ones that told me to go that route. So I don't trust it. I don't want to be out my own money. It's annoying when that happens. In terms of pieces that I want from this, for Maple, this is a separate torso piece, and I imagine the most cost-effective thing for them to do is just to send me a new torso. Or in that same vein, maybe they can just send me that part that I'm missing, provided it's something that I can repair myself. For example, it could be just glued in place, which is something I'm willing to do, but it's also possible it could be like heat pressed into place during the manufacturing process. If it is something that can be glued into place, I do expect them to provide glue, because I can't imagine them sending this part to a customer and expecting them to provide their own stuff to fix it. For Cinnamon here, I just want a new necklace. To clarify for this whole situation, I do not expect nor want an entire figure. Right, if they want to send me an entire figure, yeah, that's cool, I guess, but then that's going to guarantee that I've got to send these back. It could be pain-free if they go ahead and ship me a new figure, then box these back up into that box with a prepaid label, and then mail it back. So great, I do get brand new figures, but that would be an extremely expensive process for Native, and if they're doing this for every single RMA, that's going to add up, and eventually that's going to be added into the future cost of figures down the line. So I hope they do things a little smarter than that and try to do it a little more cost effective. And lastly, 5 and 6 kind of go together. I don't want my only option to be a return for a full refund. Kohai paid for her Maple, she wants Maple. If she had to return it to get a refund, she's still without Maple. She's no longer available, so then she'd have to go on the aftermarket and buy her at a more expensive price. That's just unacceptable. Regarding a partial refund, it doesn't make any sense for Maple, because no matter what, we're going to end up with an incomplete figure. Even if they were to give us the entire bit of money back and we can just keep her, once again, we're back to having to go to the aftermarket to buy her again at a more expensive price. For Cinnamon, a partial refund would make sense here, and I would accept it, particularly because I was able to repair it myself, so I would just see that little refund as a sign of maybe paying for my labor or a sign of goodwill between the two parties. So there you have it. Those are my expectations for this process. It will be interesting to see if what they do is in line with what I think they'll do, if they'll do things that I'm going to be satisfied with versus unsatisfied with, and how this goes through the entire process to see if ultimately I'm happy and satisfied with the results. And now it's finally time for us to go through the submission process for an RMA to Native. As stated yesterday, I submitted these two RMAs since we were already late, but I am going to take you step by step through the entire process, what you need to fill out, what fields you need to fill out to submit those forms to Native. And then afterwards, I'm going to talk about these specific RMAs and what we said. So if you aren't interested in the technical aspects of what you need to fill out and how to fill it out, go ahead and skip ahead to the next chapter where I talk about these specific RMAs and what we stated. First things first, open up the browser of your choice, and you're going to native-store.net/en, which is going to be the English-speaking side of their global store. Once you're here, you're going to agree to being over 18. Then you're going to go to the top right corner and you're going to sign in. Go ahead and insert your information. Once you have logged in, you need to get to your order history, so go to the top, My Account, and Order History. Then you'll see all the orders that you have placed. Scroll down to the order you want to RMA, and the first thing you need to note here is the order number. Go ahead and copy that. In the top right, you're going to see a Contact Us button. I recommend opening this in a new tab. To do so, use the middle of your mouse to click, which opens it in a new tab. And then you can move over to this page here. Now this contact form is not the contact form that we need, and you'll see that right here. This form is for the support request related to the Native online shop itself. Customer support for actual products, missing parts, paint issues, product requests, release requests, etc. should be sent here. So click on this hyperlink here. This redirects us back to Native's Japanese website. Once again, agree to being over 18. On this page here, you'll see that it is in Japanese. If you need to translate that to English, at least in Chrome, right-click an empty space, and then say Translate to English. Once it's translated to English, scroll down, and you'll see Native Customer Support. Click that link. This is the actual page that you need to submit your RMA. And I will link this directly in the description below so you can jump straight to this. On this page, you'll see that the top of it is still in Japanese. Right-click again, translate to English. And let's note some important information. Up at the top, they'll say that we will respond to your inquiries within 5 business days. They're closed on Saturdays, Sundays, and holidays. All right. Following products are not eligible for defect support. Products that have been purchased or delivered more than 1 week ago, there's the 7-day period we've been talking about. Products purchased from unauthorized retailers or transferred items, and customer information entered in the inquiry form does not match customer information included in your purchase history, right? So basically what this is saying is that you have to be the one that has purchased this item. And then what they're talking about, basically, if you're requesting for a problem, you need the following information. Important part of this is that you need to take photos of whatever it is that you're RMAing, right? Whatever the issue is. Make sure the photos are clear. Make sure you're not ambiguous here, so sometimes you might even have to circle the affected area. From here, we can scroll down and you'll see that some of these were repeated here in English, though in slightly different verbiage, such as may take up to 7 working days versus the 5 working days up top. Repeats once again the 7 days past delivery. And you'll need, again, the details of the defect, the images of the problem, and the order number from the online shop. Moving on to the form here, this is the field for your email address. Use the email that's associated with your Native account. For inquiry details, there's a drop down and you're going to do inquiries regarding defective products. When you're able to click this, you're going to see new fields generated below. First thing after that is the product arrival date. What you will see is optional. If you are outside the return date, do not fill this out, right? Don't self-disclose that. You're not going to be necessarily rewarded for that right from the beginning. If you don't fill it out and they ask for that information, then of course proceed to tell them. If you're within the return period, definitely go ahead and fill this out because that's going to help your case. This right here doesn't want to auto-translate for me, but if I right-click it and translate it, you'll see that it stands for product name. So you'll need the English name here of that product. If you don't remember what it is, you can go back to your tab of your order history, copy the name of it, and then submit that here. Go through, fill out your full name, fill out your phone number, right? Postal code of where you're going to have this shipped to, address you're shipping it to, the purchase store, right? It's going to be Native Online Shop in this case. Then your order number, you should have copied that from your first tab here, and you can paste that right here. All right, from here you have your inquiry details. This is where you're going to put the detailed information of what is wrong with the figure. Right, imagine you have to describe it without photos, go to that level of detail. I want to kindly remind everyone here that who you're talking to and submitting this to is not responsible for the damage or the condition that your figure arrived in, right? Being aggressive during the spot is not going to be rewarded, right? You want this customer service agent to help you out. So don't enter aggressive, right? If you've ever been in customer service, this is the most annoying thing you can do. So start off simply by being polite, right? Don't start getting aggressive until you have to escalate to something, and even then, if it's only a last resort. So again, just be kind with what you say. They have nothing to do with, for example, this maple arriving defective. Once you've filled that out, you can click here to add files from your computer, and you can upload up to 5 of them. And then lastly, you're going to hit the send button. So now let's review what I wrote for our RMA requests, and I'll show you the photos associated with those. Keep in mind this is 2 separate RMAs, so I had to submit one for maple and for cinnamon because they're 2 separate order numbers. Now Kohai, was at work whenever I found this information out, so I actually just pretended that both of these were my figures since we each ordered a pair. Starting with Maple, I kept it very short and sweet. Hello Native, my Maple arrived defective. She is missing a piece of her arm that is supposed to be glued in. As such, I cannot finish assembling her. I've attached the photos. Please advise how we can get her replaced. Thank you. Cinnamon, I also kept it simple. Hello Native, a part for my Cinnamon arrived damaged. The necklace chain had fallen out of the blister packaging and was at the bottom of the box. It shook enough to where the chain popped off the heart. I cannot get it to reattach. Please advise how we can get this replaced. Thank you. Keep in mind in this scenario, right, I was able to repair this myself, but only because I had a fine pair of needle nose pliers. I was not able to do it with my fingers, so I don't necessarily suspect that someone getting this could fix this issue. So I'm pretending whenever I'm submitting this RMA, like I didn't have a pair of those pliers and that I could not fix it. So I specifically stated, I cannot get it to reattach, right? How do we go about getting this replaced? Photo-wise, for Maple here, I kept it very straightforward. I submitted the exact same photo twice, one without a markup and one with a markup, right? So I'm just making sure that they know exactly what to be looking for here and just pointing out the gaping hole in her arm. Cinnamon, once again, I kept these photos very simple, and these are actually photos I took the exact day that this happened, and in the time lapse of our review, you can see me taking these photos. First photo is a wide shot that shows the entire necklace, so entire piece that's there. And then I have a close-up of the section that is broken, and this shows you just how small that eye hole is that has to go into the heart, which is why I needed needle nose pliers to fix this. All right, so we are finally at the end of this portion of the video, and we have the RMA submitted. We should hear back within 5 days as stated. This was submitted on Saturday. So it's Sunday in Japan where they're closed, 5 business days. I should hear back by Friday. Hopefully this is the longest portion of the video, right? Because if not, that means future me is going through some shit with this RMA, and for his sake, I hope that's not the case. As stated in the beginning, this is a complete video, right? We are going to get to the end of this process, and we'll have as many time jumps as needed till we get to the end. So this starts our first time jump in 3, 2, 1. All right, so we are back with our first update from Native. It took them 4 days to respond, which means it took 3 Japanese business days, which is right in the middle of that 5-day window they said it would take for them to get back to us. So kudos to Native, that's a good start. We have 2 separate emails to go over, one for Maple and one for Cinnamon. So let's go ahead and dive right in. We'll take a look at Maple first. So it reads like this. Dear customer, as a result of close inspection, in accordance with our customer service policy, we will offer you the missing heft arm parts. Please noted that arm parts are not glued in body part, as explained in the instruction paper. Upon arrival of parcels to some countries/regions, custom duties, value-added taxes, custom clearance fees, etc. may be levied, which the customer is responsible. Please note that we are not able to take care of any of those fees. If you do not receive the package after 30 working days, please contact us. Thank you very much. All right, so that's a great start here. We can see a little bit of English, but that's to be expected. But we can get the gist, of course, that they're going to offer us the missing left arm part. And they note that that arm part should not be glued into the body part. So that tells me that they are sending us the correct piece. And apparently they're going to send us instructions on how to do so. That's fantastic because that means what we submitted was enough for them to get the gist of it, right, and to send us the correct part. On top of that, they clearly didn't ask us about the receiving date or ask us to clarify anything about that. They saw the issue, decided to go ahead and resolve it. They also mentioned duty fees here, and thankfully I'm in the US and this parcel is going to be so valueless, right, that I'm not going to owe any taxes on that, but that could be pertinent to your country situation, so keep that in mind. Of course, they're not going to be responsible for any of those fees, nor are they going to help you out with any of that. They also give us our next important time frame update here. If you do not receive the package after 30 working days, please contact us. So I guess that's the time frame we're looking at. So 30 days plus 4 days for the response, 34 days for a full turnaround. That seems pretty nice. So far so good. And now moving on to Cinnamon. Dear customer, thank you for your continued support of Native. We sincerely apologize for any inconvenience caused on this matter. As a result of close inspection, in accordance with our customer service policy, we will offer you the replacement for the defective D part. The replacement for cinnamon will be combined with the replacement of maple, inquiry number. Upon arrival, parcels to some countries, so same thing we see there. If you not receive the package in 30 working days, please contact us. So great, okay, excellent. Also good news here. They are going to replace the part. They call it the defective D part, so I assume in the instruction manual this is called part D. They're going to combine it with the replacement for maple, so the customer service department here or whoever's working on it acknowledge that these are going to the exact same person, so they've combined this and they're going to ship them together, so that's nice and economical. Once again, didn't ask about the time window of which we got this, so no arguments, anything like that. They seem to just want to help us, and back again with the 30 days. So wonderful. Off to a great start here, completely pain-free. They accepted both RMAs without further questioning or rebuttal, right? They didn't ask about the date that we received them because we didn't disclose that information. They could have looked up the date we received it via tracking, and if they did, it also didn't bother them. It's nice to just see that customer service reps want to help us out, and they're going to send it out to us. So that's fantastic. There's, no cost to me. They're not making me return anything. They're doing it the economical way of just sending us the missing parts. Yeah, I think that's very in line with what I wanted, and at this point, I guess we're just waiting around for 30 days till the package shows up. So the next update is going to be in 3, 2, 1. It's August 29th now, and we have our next update from Native, which is 15 days later than our prior update. I admit I wasn't really expecting this update, but I guess it all makes sense now that I've seen it. In short, basically, they have shipped my part. So it took them 15 days to ship it. I guess what shocked me more than anything was that I guess I made the assumption that they had already sent it based on their last email and that I wouldn't really have tracking. So I guess it's odd to see that it took them over 2 weeks just to ship this to me. 15 days later, so roughly 10 to 11 business days later it took to send these parts. If you look at the new email, it does say that if we do not receive the parcel more than 2 weeks from today to let them know. So this does mean that since our last email, they're still on schedule to get me the part within that 30-day period, right? It took them 15 days to ship it, but they're shipping it via EMS, which is 1 to 2 week delivery. So everything's still on time. I guess I just didn't expect it to be so late in that 30-day window that they were shipping something to us. If I had to speculate, well, I guess I'll know a little bit more once I can look up the tracking information. I wonder if it's coming straight from China, right, which is going to be their supplier, or if it came from Japan. I wonder if that means they had to reach out to their Chinese supplier, get the requested parts, get it sent to Japan, inspected, and then sent to us. I might have a little more on that by the time the next update arrives, right, because I can check the tracking and see where it came from. But that's it for now. Theoretically, the next update will hopefully be the last update. So the next time skip in 3, 2, 1. And finally, we may have reached the end of this saga here as the package from Native has arrived. It arrived a couple of days ago on 9/11. This means that the total process from the day that they first responded to now was 28 days. So that means that every step of the way, Native has arrived within their time frame that they told us about, right? So they managed their own expectations. The very first response was within 5 business days. They got back to us in 3. And then they said it would take up to 30 days for the package to arrive, and it arrived in 28 days. This means that the totality of this process from the day that I submitted the RMAs to receiving this package here was a total of 32 days. So seems not too bad, right? But let's go ahead and get this cracked open here, see if we actually received the parts and that this is the end of the saga. Taking a look at the box here, we have this beautiful cardboard box with no external graphics other than this beautiful customs form here on the front with a declared value of 100 yen. Alright, so that box was significantly larger than necessary as these are the 2 packages inside of this. They said they were going to send instructions, or as per instructions as they said, which I do not see. So I'm assuming this is self-explanatory. We can probably imagine what it takes to put that part in Maple here. But let's crack open this to make sure we received what we're supposed to. Oh, here's the first layer of inner packaging. And we have, in fact, received the full necklace for Cinnamon. And unfortunately, I guess my pictures and description were not clear enough given that I was very brief in what I said. I have received the arm for Maple here. I was kind of concerned when they said that you wouldn't have to glue it in place, but because they said that it was attached to the body, I thought they meant the piece that was inserted into it. Yeah, well, that sucks. Darn. All right, well, I'm going to chalk this up at the moment to being my fault, right? My descriptions were very brief, and my photo I thought was enough. All right, well, I guess I'm going to respond to Native here. I'll let you know what... I don't know. I'm sad. I'm sad, y'all. Dang. All right, so I spent the last 15 minutes here taking new photos of the issue that I was having, and I've already written and sent my email to Native, which we'll go over here in a second. To clarify in terms of what I'm feeling in this moment, of course I'm disappointed, but I am blaming myself here. My email to them was very short, and I didn't really elaborate on the issue, and I can't remember if I even said this or not whenever I filmed that section. The way they worded the email, I was afraid that they might send me the arm when they mentioned not gluing it into place, but their verbiage of stating that it had to go into the body made me think that they were sending me the right piece, but I probably should have clarified at that moment in time. I'm not blaming Native for this. Again, I do think, at least in this moment, my feelings are that I should have been the one to elaborate further. So in this new email and new photos, I think I can get the point across. For you all, right, if you were to do this and if this works, you know, definitely learn from this and learn from my mistake. Elaborate as much as you can. I think what I was feeling whenever I sent those, one, I was rushing to send them because I was late already. And then two, I think I was afraid it would be, I don't know, too lost in translation if I put too much detail, but don't go that route. Put enough detail to get the point across. In the pictures you'll see, I was able to compare it to a good one, so it's going to be really clear what the issue is. For you all, right, in most circumstances, you're not going to have two of the same figure, so I am cheating in this respect. I think what would have really helped in the situation, though, is if I just clarified what piece I needed. I should have just asked for a new torso piece and then left it up to them as to whether or not they wanted to send me that insert piece for the arm. I think it just kind of got lost in translation that I was meaning that I was missing an arm for her. So let's take a look at the email that I've sent them and the photos that I sent along. So I am actually responding directly to the last email I received from Native where they said they shipped the parts, right, and to get back to them in 2 weeks if I haven't received it, or to reply to it if there's an issue with it. So I'm replying directly to that email. It just turned 9/18 right now, so it is 7 days after I received this package. So we can see the email here. Hello Native, I have received my replacement parts. Unfortunately, the part I received from Maple is incorrect. I apologize for not elaborating more on the initial issue. I've attached photos again of the defective parts. I should have specifically requested a new torso piece for Maple. What's missing is the insert piece for the arm and not the arm itself. Thus, why I mentioned needing to glue the insert piece into it. I think it's this part of the conversation that led to the confusion. When you get a chance, please send out a new torso for Maple. If it helps to visualize, here's a video of this exact figure and our issue with it, and I've linked our video here. Shameless plug, but maybe that'll help in the situation too. If you have any questions or need further clarification, please let me know. Again, I apologize for the confusion and for having to waste an arm piece for you all. I do consider this to be my fault, and I appreciate all your help throughout this process. All right, so I'm taking a very apologetic tone in this. I do still feel like it's my fault. So hopefully they appreciate that. Hopefully I've given enough information, and I've also been able to provide, a review. Shameless plug, that's not something that all of you all would be able to do, but maybe you could actually upload a video of the issue that you could send to them, just in case the point's not getting across, but that seems extreme. Let's take a quick look at the photos I sent. So this time around, I am able to compare it directly to a good version of the torso. You can see that I just have two different angles here, and I said the exact same text. So I've got the defective torso, and then of course showing the missing arm insert piece shown here. So I don't think there should be any misinterpretation this time around because I can share it directly with a good piece. I think it's just very common that probably the customer service agent that received this just wasn't too familiar with this piece. So whenever they quickly saw it, they're like, oh, they're just missing the arm that attaches to it. And they just weren't totally familiar with this one little exact part of maple that has that cuff on the side and has that insert for the peg hole. I do think they'll take care of me just like they did last time. So unfortunately, I'm pretty bummed in this moment. It just sucks because I know it could take another 30 days for me to get this. I feel like I'm not maybe doing my part to even show Native in the correct light, but maybe I am, right? I'm showing now what it's like for them to ship the wrong part and then to hopefully take care of me and send out a new one. So it is frustrating. I was hoping to actually finish this video soon. It was wrapping up on time to fill in some content gap. So probably by the time our next video uploads, it's probably quite a gap between them. So we've just been really busy, and this was going to fill that void because we're waiting on some figures that we're really excited about. But yeah, I don't know, at this point I'm just kind of rambling, right? There's no script for these updates here. So, all right, current Senpai is sad. Maybe next update at Senpai will be less sad. Next time skip in 3, 2, 1. So for the sake of time, I have put 3 updates into this block here. So on the 18th, I was able to send out that RMA, right, in that response. And then 5 days later, but only 3 business days later, I ended up receiving an email from Native apologizing for the delay in response. This is interesting only in the sense that it was only 3 business days later and their policy says 5 business days. But it was indeed 5 days from when I sent my email. So they probably had some form of automation, right, that takes care of sending out that email in the event 5 days have passed. So that was nice to see because it did feel like I was waiting a lot longer this time around for a response, even though it was only 3 business days. And then the following day after receiving that, I actually got the approval for the RMA. So it only took 4 business days this time around, still within their 5 business day window, and 6 total days from when I initially sent that response. Then 2 business days later, I got the email saying that it actually has shipped, and I got the tracking number for it. This is significantly faster than last time because last time it took 15 total days after receiving the RMA approved email before the item to ship. So I'm already very pleased with this process overall, even though it took 1 more business day for them to reply to me. Again, still within their time window. So hopefully here in a week, I should have exactly the part I'm needing, as I can't imagine why it would be different at this point. So next time skip in 3, 2, 1. Okay, so this should be the final update for you guys. I've actually had this for a long time. It's just taken us a while to get around to it. We've been super busy, especially with the Bear Panda review. This actually arrived October 6th, which means the totality of the second RMA from submission to receiving this was only 18 days. It is now a month and a half later after receiving this, which is well beyond their period for letting them know if it arrives safely or not, but I am very comfortable and hopeful that this is the correct item since they specified they would send me a torso. With that, here's the box. It is significantly more economical than the one they sent last time. So with that, let's open her up. And perfect. So they have sent us exactly what they said. We have a brand new torso for Maple, so I will be able to assemble her. I'm only showing you the back because her breasts are exposed. I won't be showing them in this video because there's no reason to make this 18 plus for this little snippet, especially when we have a full in-depth review of these 2 figures uncensored on our channel. So if you're interested, definitely check it out. Let's get this on our Maple. And here we have it. Kohai now has a completed Maple in her collection. She's quite lovely, no fitment issues with the replacement part. It's exactly what we needed. So let's move on to judging Native's RMA process and whether or not I'm happy with them. Before I just give you an opinion, we stated a while ago what my expectations were for this RMA. So let's go back to those same expectations and see how we did. First thing I wanted was for them to accept the RMA even though we were late, and this was specifically for Maple. I'd be more understanding if they didn't accept Cinnamon. This held completely true. They accepted it without question whatsoever, and they didn't even ask us for the date that we received it. So we got zero pushback in that regard. Number two, I did not want to have to return or exchange anything. This also held true. They asked for nothing back in return. They didn't want the broken necklace, for example, from Cinnamon. They didn't want me to ship back the entire figure. They just sent us the parts that we were missing. Three, I wanted no out-of-pocket costs for me. This also held true. I didn't have to ship anything, so I didn't have any costs there. Also, the warranty was completely free, so I didn't have to pay for shipping for them to send me the parts, for example. Four, I said I'm fine with a new torso piece for Maple, or that insert, and I'm fine with a new necklace for Cinnamon. In the end, this also held true, albeit with Maple they sent me the wrong part first. Again though, I consider that to be my fault. Second time around, I explicitly stated the torso. They sent me exactly what I needed, no complaints, didn't make me send back the arm, or anything like that. And for Cinnamon, I got an entire new necklace, just as I was hoping. Five, I did not want a refund contingent upon return as my only option. This also held true, didn't have to return anything. The worry here was maybe they didn't have the part for some reason, so the only thing they could do was accept a refund if I were to send it back. We wouldn't want that because both of these are sold out on their website, so we have to buy them on the secondhand market, and we're going to end up spending more money than we did initially. And lastly, I did not want a partial refund, at least for Maple. This also held true. That was never even an option presented because they had the parts and they just sent it. This was the exact same for Maple. They didn't offer a partial refund. Instead, they said, hey, we'll send you out a new necklace. So yes, given my expectations and what we've experienced, I am very pleased. And I think that even you all in the audience will probably have confidence that Native will have your back if you were to have an issue. I know I'm more comfortable now knowing that if I have an issue, Native will most certainly take care of us. Customer service was on point. They gave us zero pushback about anything, and they were extremely eager to help. Each time they followed through on all of their promises, such as the initial response in 5 business days, and then 30 days from that point of being accepted to receiving it. They arrived on time all across the board. So I think that's quite exceptional. 32 days for the first RMA might sound long for some people, but to me it doesn't sound long at all, given that this is an RMA from an entirely different country. And depending on the shipping options you choose when you buy an anime figure, such as like Surface Parcel, it could take 2 to 3 months for you to get a figure. In this case, Native sent these parts via the fastest shipping out of the Japanese Postal Service, which is EMS. So we received these parts in 1 to 2 weeks. Even though they really didn't have to, right? They could have sent it to us via the slowest shipping method possible, which could have taken 2 to 3 months. Because of this RMA process, I now have an extra necklace for Cinnamon here that I don't need. So if any of our viewers actually need one of these because you have Cinnamon and you broke the necklace and Native won't help you, or you're outside of the return window and you need a new necklace, just DM us, right? If you send me a picture of your broken necklace, and if you're in the United States, I'll send it to you for free. It's the least I can do for getting this extra one from Native. If you're international and willing to cover shipping, go ahead, hit me up. Same thing, send me a photo of your broken one. Happy to send out the one that I have to you. And that's it. If you've made it this far in the video and have watched over an hour-long video on RMAs, you might be insane, but I do appreciate you for sticking around. This was a lot of fun to make. This video was so much longer than intended, and I probably should have broken it up into 2 parts, but I wanted to stick to what I said in the beginning of the video. So I do hope that this is useful to someone out there in the community that needs to have knowledge about what to expect from an RMA, or maybe they need to submit one, or don't even know if what they have qualifies for an RMA. Hopefully someone found this helpful. That's what I want more than anything else from this video. If you have an RMA experience personally with Native, I'd love for you to comment down below, whether good or bad, because I'm sure the community would love to know your side of things as well. I hope to do this again in the future for any RMAs that we have, albeit I'll skip the whole RMA guide in the beginning, right? But let's say I have to return something to AmiAmi, I would love to do this exact same thing so people can see that process and we can test them just like we did here with Native. As always, your support means everything to us, and we appreciate all the kind words and support from the community that we've received so far. If you like this kind of content, please subscribe. Check out our homepage where I have everything neatly organized. You can find ways of supporting the channel in the description below. I'm Senpai. Take care.